Chris.
Roll call's been taken.
Okay. We have some new face. Well, we have one new face here today, so I think we'll do introductions. Jan, would you like to commence?
Councilor Vanderbilt for Ward 1. I'm not the mayor of the county of Brantford.
Chris?
Chris Goche, Deputy Clerk. Mark Littell, I chair the Airport Commission.
And the police commission.
And the police, yes. Sorry.
That's why you're here.
Oh, yeah.
I read that.
It's early. Can we not start at 10?
Ron Gaspardo, manager of real estate.
Jennifer Elliott, Director of Engineering Services with the city.
Christina Spears, project manager for capital. And I work for the board.
Gord Gavrilovich, I'm manager of facilities capital development.
Greg Martin, Councilor Rip on the police services board.
Ryan Hutchings, Vice Chair, Airport Commission.
I'm not gonna live it down here.
I'm Dan McCreary. I'm Grant Kuba of this group. So we're going to get started now. Anybody have a declaration of conflict of interest?
You might want introductions from people who are zooming in.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Chief, introduce yourself.
Bob Davis, Chief of Police, Brantford Police Service.
And Deputy?
Good morning, everybody. Jason Saunders, and I'm the Deputy Chief of Police.
Good save, Councilor Martin, Vice Chair of this organization.
Do we have the consultants on the line?
Good morning. It's Lee Taylor with RPL Architects.
Okay, thank you. That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have any presentations. We don't have any delegations today. We don't really have any presentation by staff. I think what we could do is just go right to questions and comments that members of the committee have regarding the report. What's before us is a recommendation to receive. I have some amendments to make, and when I get to that, Councilor Martin will act as chair. So, yes, Police Services Board Chair Mark Littell.
Thank you, Chair McCreary. So perhaps it would be fruitful to say what the motion that passed by council was on Tuesday night.
Council upheld the resolution that was here previously that was adopted 4-1 by this committee.
Yes.
It had been on the floor to be deferred pending the receipt of the information that's in today's report.
Okay.
Council decided to proceed with the original recommendation.
Which is rebuilding on the current location.
10-4. So
am I premature in asking the question, when can we start putting the shovel in the ground? Is that too early to ask that question?
yes, if you'll take a look at, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that question, Chair Littell. If you'll look at item 5.5, project status review, you'll see that we are going to tender in July 2023, and then construction will start immediately upon the contractor being able to mobilize.
So my last question is, why are we waiting to go to tender till 2023, a full year and 3 months away from
A
now?
most excellent question. And if you'll, again, I'll refer you back to the graph of project timelines.
Yes.
We don't achieve completion of the detailed design until December of 2022. And then it takes us considerable time to do the construction drawings, specifications, and GCs.
So really the last question is, there's nothing we can do to move that time frame up from the fact that they're busting at the seams at the station?
Perhaps the consultant on the line could provide a response to I almost called you Councilor Littell, to PSB Chair Littell.
Sure. Yeah, we are going to try and expedite things quicker. I think that what's identified in the report there with going to tender mid-summer of next year is probably a worst case scenario that we're looking to improve upon ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I forgot to mention this is moved by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Vanderbilt. The item that's on the floor currently. Yeah. Councilor Martin.
It talks about
some things that are completed already, the pre-design report and the alternate development options report. When is this committee gonna get those reports?
Those reports have been provided previously, so I think they were provided at first task force meeting.
Okay.
We can provide them again.
Councilor Vanderstel.
You noticed I had a question. So the interim use of space while we are under construction or connecting new to old, how much square footage is actually required for that for temporary use? Do we know?
Is that a question for me, the consultant?
I'm not really sure who I'm asking, but there you are. I didn't see you earlier.
Sorry.
Yes, just wondering how large that temporary space use is, where it is actually.
I can't remember exactly how much space is available at the former Travel Information Center. However, the amount of space will vary. We're going to have to likely implement the construction over, it's likely 3 phases. So during each phase, there might be a different amount of space required.
But all within the containment of that building, right?
Yes.
Not an additional location.
Not at this time, no.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor, the space available with tourism facilities is about 11,000 square feet.
Thank you very much.
Frank, go ahead.
I know Christina's just started. Today day one? Is it day one or day what?
Day 5.
Oh, day 5. Okay. So anyways, so I know she's just started. So we do have the tourism center sitting there empty. I know somebody's
Yeah.
comment about the place bustling at the seams. I think
Yeah.
if we do have some spots we can move right now, we could use that. And so we should also look at that. But I also want to make sure we know that for this committee's sake, and again, I've been involved with 2 or 3 other police stations where I've been involved in my past. You know, when the architect comes back with the detailed drawings and things like that, that's when this committee will also have a lot of chance to look at those drawings and costs, and we can go to a class D estimate, probably class C, and all that sort of stuff. So that's when we come back with the drawings, we'll look at space and look at things and look at costs and things like that. And this committee can have a lot more involvement at that time, but we'll be extensively involved at that time. Very critical point come this fall.
Right, and the intent is to not disrupt police services that are critical. Of course, they're all critical, but the ones that need to operate 24/7 within that space. I've done transition planning with hospitals before, and I understand that you don't have downtime opportunities for this space. So I'll bear that in mind.
So we have a meeting, a decent building sitting there waiting for you. So
Right, I
So
should take a look at it.
if I may, to the consultant, schematic design phase, have you commenced that?
That's basically our next step.
So you're starting that today?
Yes.
Good answer. Thank you. Now, the project milestones are not as finite as I'd like to see them currently. When do you expect to have a first blush look at the conceptual design to be reviewed by this committee?
We've got a meeting tentatively set up for this Wednesday with some members of the police service to kind of introduce them to this current concept and to have discussions surrounding the phasing of construction. So that will kind of guide our approach to the schematic design process, but I would expect that we should have a kind of a good handle on the schematic design probably by the end of the summer.
Summer of 2022?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for you to do a very top-down look for comment prior to that.
Yep.
So if you could maybe let us know how quickly you can advance that and when this committee can view first blush for it. I will add the council is very interested in having this completed ASAP, and anything we can do to hasten that is much appreciated.
Understood.
Now you've identified a separate phase for the detailed design and construction drawings, specs, and so on. I got to think some of that's off the shelf, right? Some of your specs, some details.
Not really. Everything gets tailored pretty project specific, particularly with this being a renovation addition project. You know, everything's pretty much, you know, custom. However, I mean, our firm we do specialize in the design of police facilities. So we do have, you know, we're quite knowledgeable in how things have to be detailed.
So it's definitely a second phase and nothing you can do concurrently to advance that.
In terms of concurrent processes, we can take a look at what we can do there and get back to you on that.
Anybody else want to jump in, or I'll continue? Okay. With respect to the lands that we've purchased adjacent at Elgin Street, do we know the condition of that property?
We have not, so to clarify that, Ken, we haven't purchased them. That report will be coming forth in July, but Ron, do you want to update that?
Yeah, so
We need
we're
permission to purchase them through council, so Ron's bringing a report in July.
through the chair. We've been negotiating with Enbridge. We've got the appraisal completed, so we've got the numbers worked through with Gordon and his group in terms of the work that's required for creating the new access point for for Enbridge off of Carter. So we've got those numbers, and like Mr. Hutchings has said, we're bringing a report forward in July.
Sorry, I was under the impression that deal had concluded. Is there any reason we're not doing that in June?
We were waiting for the resolve of the task force for the location before we moved forward.
Okay. Can you have it for us in June?
Well, through the chair, I think it's timing, or I think it's the matter of how many reports are going forward in June, fitting it onto that agenda. We can look at that, do our best.
I'll remind everybody that council decided that this is to go ASAP. So if you can get that on the June agenda, regardless how heavy it is, that would be advantageous. You could have that to this committee could meet again to make that recommendation to council. It could come forward as a recommendation from this committee.
Mr. Chair, the report is ready. It's just with the clerk's giving us advice of 5 reports on June 14th. They asked to be deferred to July. Seeing as it's an urgent to this committee, we can put it on the agenda. And I don't know if this committee has to, we already have direction from council to bring something back. So,
Yeah.
so
it doesn't need to come to us to hasten it. Okay. Yeah. So let's get it in the agenda for June. That's super. Ron, is there any expectation that we have to do archaeology there, or any soil investigations, or record of site condition?
We will put in a due diligence period in our agreement of purchase and sale, which will allow us a period to conduct whatever studies will be required.
So we'll be moving on that PDQ once council approves this in June.
yes, we will be.
Okay.
The transaction will come through.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll do the site. And then the next thing we have to do is the entrance off Carter. That's a big deal to the Enbridge, obviously.
Sure. Because until that deal is concluded, we need the title to those lands to go further, right?
Yeah, and like I said, we're the purchaser, so when we're satisfied that we can waive those conditions
Yeah.
and become, go firm with the deal, then we're ready to do that. I met with Enbridge last week with their operations as well as with their legal real estate group, and they're very eager to move forward. They have, works that they're going to be doing interior wise to the site for the new entrance. So they're very eager to move forward as well.
So can you provide us with a memo about how quickly and what you have to do to satisfy our conditions? If you wouldn't mind,
Sure, I can work through with Gord and
Yeah.
and we can.
because we don't want this to get bogged down, okay? And procedure and.
Yep.
This is chop chop, right? Yeah,
We
okay,
close them all.
yeah. So,
But
yeah, go ahead.
Enbridge is a very, very, very willing partner here. I think you have to make clear that the police services is the best neighbor they could ever have. It reduces their service costs. Since day one, when that headline hit the paper about them going downtown, they instantly called me and they're quite concerned. They really want this deal to happen from their local Al Dusling, who represents the local office. They really want, so they're a willing partner. The issue is they're a big company. We're dealing with Calgary, and sometimes we're there with Calgary. And once we get that done, we'll move this as quickly as we possibly can.
One of the things in the report that I found a little disconcerting was a statement that we're accruing $500,000 a month in construction costs. So if I'm looking at a 24-month construction period, does that mean that we're building a building at today's value of 25 million?
It's just impacted being delayed. It's not the overall impact to the project cost.
So that, okay, so what the report said was it's $500,000 a month for every month that the project is delayed, okay? So if the construction ends in 2 years, is the contractor not taking into account a $500,000 inflation rate per month?
So there's two ways we could do this, and this is the concern, is, and I'm gonna let Christina and Jennifer speak to the inflation rate. They do that for a living, I don't do it. But there's two ways you can do it. If we're at fixed cost of 39 million, which was an estimate from 2 years ago from Colliers, right? So it's 2 years ago, an estimate. If that's the fixed cost, if that's our limits, then we're eating into that 39 million. And you're right, it's probably a $25 million bill in today's dollars on time. But you read that the report, the recommendation was in item 3, I believe, in the recommendation that said, once we get the costs, when the architects come back in the fall with the costs, the 2023 capital budget, we may have to readjust this budget based on inflation concerns. So there's a third clause in there. We'll come back in the 2023 and we'll see what council, if they want to cap it at 39 million or they want to increase it. But again, the one concern we have, and you're probably here for the Police Services Board, is the policing standards. So there's got to be a certain level of policing standards we have to comply by as well. My understanding of my previous life.
Sure. So, committee members, anybody want to jump in?
Yes, so you keep going back to 25 million from 39 million, but would we not be going up? Is it not going to go up from 39 million to 51 million?
There is that potential. The 39 million that is in the report is 2022 dollars. So as we're sitting with the current uncertainties of the market and inflation, then yes, as we move closer and further refine the estimate, that estimate could come up. As we're working through the detailed design this year, and we will get further refined numbers, we will come back in the 2023 capital budget.
So I go back to my statement earlier about, rather than starting in 2023, whatever we could do to start earlier. My last question, and I'm familiar with several projects when I was on council. Seems to be the builders just can add on any money they want. So we quoted you 39 million, but it's really 41 million. You owe us $2 more million. Can we not cap that and say, listen, this is the project. This is what we want done. Give us your best price.
Yeah, you have the contract with the scope of work stated.
But it seemed before, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it seemed before that we had the contract. The Gretzky Center is an example where they just kept that, and the water treatment plant was the same thing, where it's just like, there's another 2 million, there's another 3 million, there's another 4 million.
There are
Mark,
a lot
I'm just going to
of-
interrupt. The consultant's got his hand up. I think he has something productive to say to us.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that the pricing came from the Colliers report, but that's not really accurate. The latest costing for the 39 million came from us based on this latest concept. And that's in 2022 dollars. It does carry approximately like $6 million contingency. Basically, the estimate that we had done was a Class D, which is kind of just based on our program and some very high level blocking concepts that we provided to our cost consultant. But it should be noted that like with inflation today, and the supply chain challenges, the contractors are taking on a fair bit of risk these days, and they are sometimes reflecting that in their pricing of their jobs.
So would you not say, Lee, that you can potentially reduce cost by the concurrent timelines that we spoke about before, where you can amalgamate certain pieces of work within the construction schedule? I mean, this is only after you've had your site walkthrough and done the preliminary design. We could tentatively say that you can avoid some of the cost impacts by expediting certain parts of the project, right?
Yes, that's fair to say.
Theoretically.
I think that's going to be, I don't think that's going to be a huge impact to the cost. It's more kind of when we get into, looking closer at the existing building and detailing, and, we're, as much as possible, we're trying to retain as much of the existing facility to avoid having to kind of, incur costs by taking out things to rebuild them elsewhere and stuff.
Right.
So Lee, I just want to quickly I think we're both, I want to make record, this is a public meeting, I want to make sure the record's clear. I think we're both correct. Collier's budget came at 39, you guys came in at a much higher number, and then you've readjusted to 39, so we're all the same. So I think just want to correct, both make sure we're both on the same page. You're right, your number is 39, but Collier's was 39 as well.
Yep.
To a bigger point, I know this is a public meeting, so this isn't just on the police services budget. We are, and Jennifer will tell you this, we're experiencing this across the board. This is a big issue for us. We haven't had this discussion yet at council, but the whole capital budget at this point in time, we are going back to look at possibly rebase the capital budget. Like capital budgets have gone up almost 20% over the last year. We've done this 10-year forecast. It's a big challenge right now, this inflation on capital. And so if somebody's watching this and think it's just a police services board issue, it's not. In fact, that's a sniffle with Marlene when it's a housing issue. Just now, they're seeing some changes in housing costs and just even maintenance of capital. So it's a big issue across the board for every city.
So Greg, before I go to you, I want to clarify a point that Mark asked earlier about the Gretzky Center cost overruns. The Gretzky Center was actually, it actually followed two management models. The first management model was the absence of a management model. And in fact, the clerk in the engineering department was in charge of a $60 million project. And council didn't realize that until we were probably about 13 mil over budget. And then council took the same action that we've taken with this project. We created a steering committee. We hired a competent, excellent project manager like we've done here. And with apologies to the architects, they're not our guys in terms of getting the work done on site. So the contractor took advantage of that situation as much as possible, and the architects approved every change order at whatever rate they wanted. And we were also design building. So there was a point in time when we were hammering out foundations that we'd already installed because somebody had a bright idea. Right? So that's kind of where we were on that one. Great.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that. And the one thing I wanted to add to that is once the steering committee was established, change orders were still being approved by staff without it coming to the steering committee. Just want to emphasize that's not going to happen on this situation. It shouldn't have happened then, but it did. But it's something that, any changes have to come through this committee to get approval. Otherwise, you'll see the cost ratchet up on this real quick.
Greg's talking about big ticket items. We're not talking about, moving a chair here and there or moving a wall by a foot. Greg's talking about like $100,000 items that we never saw.
Hockey practice rink,
Yes, goalie practice.
goalie
rink, yeah.
practice, yeah.
Brian, did you want to comment on that?
Well, I was just gonna say, if the Ward 3 councilors took exception to that, because
No, no.
I wasn't blaming you
No, no,
for
no,
the
no, no, no,
overruns.
no.
I just was comparing it to
Yeah.
here, and the other one that I talked about that you didn't address was the water treatment plant that went way over.
So we have, just internally, we have, which you wouldn't be too privy to, but we have an accommodation steering committee. That's my past management practice. We meet monthly. Jennifer is the lead staff member on that. So every project comes every month on big, mainly administrative projects like this building, you know, all Woodland Center and everything else. So most of them come and say, we'll have about 8 projects. So we monitor the capital progress, the timeline, everything else, make sure they're on time. So there is an internal process. Something like this task force is even, we have to sharpen our pencil even more for. So we have double layers here in addition to that. So we try not to get around that mark. I think things have changed since those times.
Okay. That's
The water
good.
treatment plant was I believe it was a $13 million error.
Well, there was ground issues.
Yes,
and
there was a
blowout.
part of the building that no one knew that existed below ground level. And then the whole thing went like this.
Yeah, I wasn't attacking previous projects. All I was just
No,
making the
no,
analogy.
but
So
Greg and I just wanted to make sure that you were fully informed.
I am now. I wasn't before, but I am now. Thank you. Thank you for enlightening me, Mr. Chair.
Greg, were you done?
Yes.
I didn't, I'm sorry, okay. So with regards to temp space, what's your plan?
First, we have to meet with the police force on Wednesday. I've been reviewing all the reports and the documents that we have on file. And what we have to do is look at adjacencies and see who works with whom, and then keep people at the same site who need to be there. So I have to take a look at that tourism building as well. And maybe we can do a walkthrough of that on Wednesday. I don't know, because you're speaking about expediting the timeline. So we'd have to come up with a report for you to we'll present to you.
So the consultant talked about 3 stages. So theoretically, we could be building the shell of the new facility, transferring people into that temporarily while we redo their space. Is that kind of your thinking
Well, that's,
to some extent?
I'd have to speak with Gord about that and make
Yeah.
sure these in agreement, but
You,
I think that was the direction that consultants were gonna go.
Yeah.
Was to build the addition first, move people in, and then renovate the rest of the building.
and move people once. Where
Right,
I've
right.
been in the past, at the last place I worked, we moved people multiple times. And
Yeah.
part of it is also, in my opinion, I haven't spoken to anybody about this, but before moving people into their final location, there's something called transition planning, so that when you move into the space, you're familiar with what is where, so that you're not fumbling for what you need in the new space.
right. Excellent. What else? Okay, Greg, you want to take the chair and I'll do the amendment? So I've got 3 amendments to the be received portion that's before us today. The first amendment is to add a member of the police union, I don't,
Association, they call
police
themselves.
association, add a member of the police association to this committee as a non-voting member. Looking for a second. I see I have one. By explanation, we did that with the number 2 fire hall. We had a union rep at the table. It was valuable, not only to the project, but to the relationship. And I think that we can replicate that here and probably get some good feedback, some good instant feedback.
Questions, comments?
Question. So they're just here in an observer status.
Non-voting member,
So
just like staff.
they're not going to be asking questions, et cetera, like that. They're
They
just
have the
going.
right to do that.
Pardon me?
Just like anybody that attends the committee meeting, they have a right to participate. They simply cannot move, second, or vote.
Okay.
Seeing nothing further, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Next amendment.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Second amendment, not the second amendment, because because that gets people in trouble.
Yeah.
But the second amendment nonetheless would be to hold future meetings of this group at the police station. Looking for a second.
I'm happy to second that.
The thinking being that hopefully within the next couple of months, we will have the beginning of design work. And I think it's advantageous for us to be in the building so that we can explore what that stuff is as it happens. I think it makes sense.
Through the chair, are they going to be able to facilitate our hybrid meeting? Scenario that you have right now? or-
Actually not. No.
So should we put in the amendment that this task force be in person? If
Correct.
they can't facilitate the hybrid meetings?
Yeah.
Or virtual?
We're not stepping on anybody's toes, right?
Look at the clerk.
Yeah.
Well, the police board has done hybrid meetings in the training room before.
True.
That might be an option if we need to keep it hybrid.
It's up to the task force. I'm not too sure if there are IT capabilities for the police.
In the past, I've had standing meetings where you normally meet, you have like a war room of sorts, and then if needed, based on what's on the agenda, you go to site from there. It's a bit more timely because you have to travel, but
I don't think we want to do that. I've participated in those kinds of meetings.
yeah, you don't like that.
It's like calling a fire drill in the middle of the school play, right?
Okay,
Nobody comes back.
sure.
Councilor Brandon,
Nobody comes back, so.
No, my concern,
Oh, I'm coming back.
That's still interesting, that one.
my concern has had to do with the hybrid format that we're following right now. And I hope to hear back from Deputy Chief Saunders and perhaps Lee Taylor as well as their availability. I wouldn't want to cut our nose off to spite our face. Maybe we can get some feedback.
Deputy, comment?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, just to the question, we do have the capability to accommodate both hybrid model here at the station as well.
So the amendment just is said then, Chris.
Or Chair Liddell?
Thank you, Acting Chair Martin, and Vice Chair of the Police Board and Airport Commission. I almost forgot my question there. I guess the concern I have, even though I seconded to get it on the floor, Mr. Chair, is that do we have enough room in the boardroom to seat all of these people at the police service? Or are we going to end up moving it into the training room?
Yeah.
I guess through you to the mover.
Yeah, the deputy's ready to answer that.
Okay,
That
so
will be done in the training room.
Yeah, we have two options. We have the training room. We also have the practical training area that we can set up to temporarily accommodate these meetings.
and then I guess the other one is just because the majority of staff are coming from the city. Why are we moving it out there through you to the mover there? That was a question to you, Councilor McCurry.
Councilor Creer?
Oh, thank you. I'll address your question during my speaking remarks, as we don't want cross debate, right, Mr. Chair? Yes. No, I think it makes sense for everybody involved to be in that building as we're discussing changes to that building. We're talking about renos, we're talking about new construction, and first blush, we're going to look at a schematic design of this place, and how can we do that more effectively here than there? And our staff are in the business of going to job sites, right? So it's no hardship. If the chair is worried about the incursion of coffee costs to feed committee members with coffee at the meetings, I'm sure the CAO could probably arrange to do a small transfer of funds, Chair Liddell.
So may I be reimbursed on the
No,
$1.90?
you may not. Oh, sorry.
Seeing nothing further, we'll call the vote on that. All in favor? Carried unanimously.
I have one more, Mr. Chair. And this one is that this group makes recommendation to both Police Services Board and to City Council that future Police Service Board meetings be held here in Brantford City Hall.
Don't see a seconder for that.
The police service board meetings be held in City Hall.
No seconder. Any further amendments?
I think, Mr. Chair, it's just that I didn't perhaps say it loudly
You
enough.
have
that
no
My seconder
seconder.
can hear me.
It dies without the seconder.
Okay, thank you.
Any further amendments?
That is it.
Then I'll
Yes,
return the chair to you.
thank you. Okay, so any other comments or questions or anything from committee members, from staff before we? Yeah, okay, nothing. So everything was moved as an omnibus bill. So then we'll go to the question on the receive and the minutes, and those in favor. And that carries. Thank you. We don't have a resolution. We don't have a notice of motion. We are all done. Thank you, everybody. Most productive meeting, and I'll remind the consultant that he is to provide us with a glimpse into our future with respect to when we can schedule our first review of the conceptual design, as well as his best effort to tighten and shorten our time frame, perhaps by making his people work longer hours, perhaps doing all these
Without
things,
incurring
and
overtime.
as we mentioned a couple of times, perhaps we can abbreviate the consecutiveness into concurrentness with respect to the detailed design phase and the specs and standard details being worked out while we're doing the initial blush. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Hopefully in future meetings, we can have all the left-handed people sitting
I
in one
know.
part of the room.
Thank you.
That's possible.
Okay.
You got something against us?